Hello and welcome on behalf of ETRetail to this exclusive session today. I'm Shantari Malya and I'm going to be your host, moderator for this session. So what is this session going to be all about? So at the very outset, let me welcome all our speakers and our audiences for this exclusive session on security coupled with modern businesses. So modern security for modern business. A quick overview. So we are very clearly in the age of digital commerce. Cybersecurity is inhibited by advanced, intelligent, data-obsessed cyber threats that leverage emerging tech now, like never before, AI and application-level attacks. So data states that 80% of attacks today happen at an application level, and 65% of those attacks aim to extract customer or product data, very dangerous data, to fall back on. As a result, conventional defenses like basic network firewalls or capture-based authentication are no longer sufficient for enterprise security. So what it ends up doing instead is dampening the user experience on your sites, making you lose precious customer traffic and revenue. So where does the answer lie for us? The answer lies in equally intelligent defense technologies, AI-powered multi-layered defense mechanisms like zero trust systems, two-factor authentication, and tamper-proof tokens, amongst others. But the implementation of all these tactics must be prudent and effective, as we all know. So how can we ensure that our firm is safe? So we have put together an exclusive session just for you today, wherein we have a set of experts who will be walking us through different aspects of cybersecurity, new forms of threats, and some of the best practices they have evolved in their journey as digital leaders. So it's my pleasure to welcome to today's session. May I request you to switch on your cameras as I call out your names? Mr. Rana Hazarika, who's the Director, Product and Technology at Upgrad.
Hi, Shantari. Thank you for having me here.
Welcome, Rana. It's a pleasure to have you here. We also have Mr. Debojit Maitra, the CISO of Aditya Birla Fashion. Welcome, Debojit.
Thank you very much.
Yes, welcome so much, Debojit. And we also have the pleasure of having Mr. Gautam Gurtoo, the co-founder of the Nitrogen platform. Thank you so much, Gautam, for joining us today. A warm welcome to you.
Thanks, Shantari.
Yes. So without further ado, I will leave the context setting for further discussion to Gautam. So Gautam, would like to invite you to set the context on modern security for modern businesses. All yours.
Let me start by sharing my screen, showing you a few slides. Promise won't bore you a lot with it. Let me quickly go through what sort of attacks we see these days. And understanding the attacks obviously is the first key to solving them and preventing them on our sites. So what usually used to happen is most of the attacks used to be on the network layer. And they are sort of the de facto traditional attacks. Most of the sites and systems are capable of protecting it by putting a network firewall these days. So they are not really of a concern anymore. The next complexity of attacks happened by people scraping the sites at the layer 7. So websites and web application was scraped for data. Then comes the volume attack, because then a huge amount of such scraping attacks or trying to put a DDoS or a DOS attack created a volume attack on our systems. Beyond that, the attack started to cause damage to the sites, whereas SQL injection, cross-site scripting, remote or local file injections, these type of attacks started to extract information or damage the reputation of the company, the site, and the user's personal data was at stake. So for these types of attacks, there were a lot of research went in to create web application firewalls which work on layer 7. But nowadays, what's happening is AI-driven malicious attacks are happening, which are masquerading as legitimate users. And then it is creating a even more challenging task for security professional to block them. Now, there's also an important understanding between how your application, a web app, differ from APIs which you are exposing to the world. And OWASP has created a separate list of top 10 attack vectors which are prevalent these days to really be very clear of what is it that your system is. Is it a web app or an API, or usually a mix of both? And then what are sort of the attack vectors and attack surface available on your site for exploits? And over the last few years, we have seen a huge increase in attacks over APIs. So yes, web apps attacks have also increased, but the rate of increase on APIs is much, much higher in last couple of years or so. And that is because APIs are exposing data. So that's a gold mine for attackers. We are making it easier and sort of ready-made systems to attack and extract real valuable information. It's much more worth it of attackers' time to attack an API versus a web app, which are difficult to scrape and extract data from. How effective are security tools? So a lot of security tools are out there, open source and commercial, and they all usually promise reduced false positive or no false positive. But the danger of relying on false positive is that false negatives are lost in tracking. And if we are focusing on reducing false positive, there's a big danger of false negative where attackers are just getting away with their attacks without no one noticing them. And that's the biggest rise happening right now, because the tools on one hand are not capable of detecting AI-driven masquerading attacks, and we are not even focusing in trying to do such attack preventions. So that's very important. So in your systems, I would recommend review not only false positives, but also the false negatives. Now, we did a quick survey across around 5,000 digital commerce sites in India earlier this year. And there's some interesting numbers. So there are rule-based WAF operating. There is a DDoS protection on many sites. There's CAPTCHA, but the CAPTCHA is a two-edged sword. Putting a CAPTCHA reduces the user experience, and not many sites user experience-wise don't want it. And it's sort of unproductive tool. So it's a negative these days to put a CAPTCHA on your site. Now, bot protection and AIML protection is there, but it's very, very low. So you can see from these numbers that the protection levels are very low compared to where it should be. Now, if you see, from a speed and security perspective, these are two very important aspects of any web system these days, because speed really translates into user experience. If your site is poor, you're going to lose customers. But on the other hand, if you put security measures, they slow down your website. So that should not happen. So we all want to be in the best of the security and best of the speed. So these are some of the tools which are out there right now. And if you see from one angle, then you can easily decide you are at this level of network appliance firewalls, or you have cloud-based firewalls, where they stand and how much security they are putting in. But there's also obviously licensing cost and management overhead aspects of these. So they need to be properly understood before deciding on what sort of tool is actually applicable to your needs, and is it something which you really want to be in that space or not. There's no right or wrong answer which one you choose, but you need to be aware of what you just picked and what level of security and sacrifice in speed you're getting from it. Now, nitrogen security modules are multi-layered. So we cannot just rely on one particular technology to stop attacks. So obviously we start with origin obfuscation because nitrogen ends the traffic at nitrogen servers. Your servers are sort of unknown to the world. If your servers are not known to the world, basically they cannot be attacked. So that's a very basic thing. So you immediately taking care of huge amount of surface reduction in your systems. Network firewall is a given. It's a no-brainer. Then we have request caching layer. So not many people realize caching is actually a great security tool, and it improves the performance at the same time. So if a certain request response is cached, then the attacker cannot actually reach your real servers. It will be served by nitrogen safe servers. So that's a great way to improve speed as well as security. Then comes our DDoS rate protection modules. Then we have a huge array of black and white listing. We have malicious IP detection. We have geo-based protection. We have referrer-based. Different attack vectors can easily be whitelisted or blacklisted from this layer. Then comes the WAF rules. So these are traditional WAF rule-based request patterns, which are still very effective in blocking SQL injection and cross-site scripting, injections of different types in your servers, layer 7 attacks. And these together, with being it personalized, we can actually tune the false positive and false negatives to be in the right place and not just tune only the false positives because they are personalized to your site. So there is a module which takes about 2 weeks to understand the traffic of your website and tune things accordingly based on the patterns of your traffic, not just standard take it or leave it style thing. Then comes our AI-driven tamper-proof tokens. So this module understand the traffic patterns across your site and other sites as well, and creates a pattern whether this request can be coming from a human or an automated system. And then we issue tokens which cannot be tampered with. They can be tampered with, but we will detect if they are tampered and immediately block it. So this creates a very interesting module where patterns of attackers and humans can be separated out. They are not rule-based. So any pattern or any type of technology the attacker is using, this system will detect. So it's a catch-all system. So together with all these systems, the tamper-proof tokens really effectively learn and protect things. And then comes our, additional on top of these things, there's a two-factor authentication and a API auth system, which is in beta we are building, which will take care of a lot of different layers of attacks. Now, so basically, this is the overall picture which is happening right now in terms of attack surfaces. Over to you, Shantri.
So thank you so much, Gautam. I mean, that was a very illuminating context setting that, sort of leads us, lends itself into the discussion further. So taking off from where Gautam kind of gave in a context in terms of what and how the threat vectors have changed and how organizations can pick on from here and look at their cybersecurity solutions and strategies a little differently. Let's jump right into the discussion right now with our panelists. So as I stated earlier, we have Debojit Maitra from Aditya, birla, Rana, Hazarika from Upgrad, and Gautam himself joining us on the discussion. So welcome back again to the panelists. I'm going to throw the first question here to Rana. Rana, my first question would be to you here. And we will kind of kind of invite views if time permitting eventually, if we can get questions. But let's take the first response from Rana. Rana, as we know, malicious actors are getting more and more creative with their attack techniques, and they're launching more and more sophisticated attacks that not only maximize the damage, but are also difficult to detect at the same time, as Gautam was also, sort of broaching. So what new trends around hacking are you noticing? And as someone who is, sort of in the heart of digital tech decision making, what's your biggest concern with the way in which these new and more sophisticated cyber attacks are being carried out? So all yours.
Thank you. So I think, you are right. So I think cybersecurity is a very fast evolving space, right, where hackers and security providers are basically trying to outsmart each other, right? And new threats, new innovative ways to combat them emerge all the time. In my view, I think there are 3 or 4 clear trends which are clearly concerning for all of us, right? One, I think, is the rise of ransomware and the issues with multi-factor authentication. So ransomware is nothing new, right? So it's not a new threat. It has been around for so many decades now, but it's a growing one. And what we are seeing nowadays is that ransomware attackers, right? So they're becoming more sophisticated in their phishing exploits through machine learning and with more coordinated sharing of data on the dark web, right? So hackers typically they demand payment in cryptocurrencies, and which are very difficult to trace, right? So we can expect to see more ransomware attacks in organizations, right? And it's only going to increase in the near term. Coming to multi-factor authentication, right? So it was considered as the gold standard of authentication, right? But however, nowadays malicious actors are finding new ways to actually bypass it. So specifically, authentication which is carried out through an SMS, right, or phone calls, which is basically an OTP, right? Now SMS has a built-in security, but the messages sent, including all the OTP messages, right? They are not encrypted actually. So malicious actors, they can carry out some kind of automated man in the middle kind of attacks and obtain that OTP, the passcode in a plain text, right? So this presents a new area of danger, new area of vulnerability for areas like, let's say, industries like online banking, right, where authentication is pretty mostly done by the OTP through SMS. Second issue which I'm seeing, the trend is basically related to remote working security risk, right? So with the COVID pandemic coming in, most organizations shifted to a remote work setup. And even with the pandemic now going away, post-pandemic also a lot of the workforce are going to still continue working from home, right? Now, working from home poses a new kind of security risk, of course, because the home offices are not, let's say, as protected as, let's say, the centralized offices or the office network, where there are more firewalls, more routers, more stuff related to access management by the IT team of the particular company, right? So employees are using their own personal devices for two-factor authentication and all of that. And they're also using mobile versions of either Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Google Meet, right, to attend all of those meetings. So this blurred lines between personal and professional life increases the risk that sensitive data, like let's say customer data or let's say some kind of important credential which used by the employee can get leaked to the wrong hands, right? Thirdly, another trend, it's again related to remote work, is basically the increasing reliance on cloud services and cloud threats, right, which you are seeing. Now, cloud, of course, it's one of the biggest vulnerabilities or dangers which we are seeing, and this is again due to the rapid adoption and of remote working, right? It has basically fast-tracked the adoption of cloud in the organizations, right? And cloud services, of course, they offer a lot of benefits in terms of scalability, efficiency, cost savings, and all of that. But they're a prime target for attackers. So any misconfigured cloud setting, it can cause a significant cause of data breach and also unauthorized access, right? And including account hacking. And lastly, I think the trend which I'm saying is the evolving IoT space, right? So the expanding Internet of Things creates a lot of opportunities for cybercrime. So IoT devices like, let's say, fitness trackers, wearable fitness trackers, right? Smartwatches and voice assistants like, let's say, Amazon Echo or Google Home. So these are becoming quite popular nowadays, right? With so many additional devices coming in, it changes the dynamics, and also it increases size in terms of the number of touch points where the attackers can target. We call it the cyber attack surface, right? So that's increasing on a daily basis. And compared to laptops and smartphones, so these IoT devices, they do not have too much of processing capability or, let's say, storage capability, right? So it becomes harder for us to employ firewalls or, let's say, antivirus and other kind of security applications to safeguard them. So these are the kind of trends which I'm seeing in the cybersecurity space.
Sure. Thank you for that, Rana. I mean, some interesting thing on ransomware and the dependence, the increase in sort of cloud services, dependence on cloud services, and this remote worker blurring of personal and professional data lines. Some very, and of course the proliferation of devices, the wearables and the proliferation of edge, if I may state so, for want of a better word. So I think those are the great points. I mean, you pretty much summed up the landscape of the growing new threat vectors. Debojit, I would like to throw the same question to you. What's been your experience in terms of what the sophistication of attacks? What's been your experience in your organization and in your industry, particularly? If you could sort of give us a small overview, a quick overview.
More or less, cyber attack concept is the same wherever it may be retail, it may be manufacturing, it may be some whatever the modus of operandi. But the thing is that the focus now has become into the edge. Because why I'm telling an application? Because if you look at the perimeter level, this attacks and this counterpart is quite strong, because AI-driven firewall, AI-driven WAF, AI-driven IPS, IDS, all these things are coming and it becomes difficult. So the easiest way to penetrate the network is the application and the edge. And also one more thing I like to tell, DNS security. Because the primary objective of the cyber attackers to attack the DNS and encrypt the DNS first. If the DNS is encrypted, the entire organization comes into a halt. So that DNS security is very important. Application, there is no end. Why there is no end? Because the way I am writing a program, X may be writing a program in a different way. Y may be writing a program in another way. So it varies. It varies from company to company, man to man, and the vulnerability of each an application is also very, very huge and unlimited. Third one is that API, which is the most vulnerable place where the attacker can get inside the network. So now the API the securities are coming with various companies and they are trying to give the solutions. I don't have the experience into this, but I can tell you that whatever the theoretical knowledge I have, that is we are also going to implement very shortly. And the next thing what I want to tell is the adaptive identity access management. What is that? Because the UBA or UEBA, whatever we are telling you, user behavior analytics, which is being in part of the SIM of every SIM company, which is basically driven or collecting all the information about the activity of the edge. And this, if integrated with the identity access management, then a flag will come out if there is an anomaly. So if there is an attacker comes into my machine and my UBA, because he doesn't know at what time I am logging into SAP, he may not know at what what are the applications I am loading into the SAP? Maybe FICO or maybe SD module or S4HANA, whatever it may be. He may not know. But this anomaly, if it comes at a different time, the identity access management should flag it. So that is my one. Another one, what I like to tell that is very, very important is that software-defined perimeter. This is coming. Microsegmentation, this is also coming. Microsegmentation means each VM, today's date, in one server, maybe 20 VMs are there. And each VM, there is no firewall. Only one firewall is in the perimeter level. So if one VM is compromised by any means, let's check it by any means, then the lateral movement is very easy because there is no as such any protection except the antivirus. So that software-defined perimeter through which you can make the dynamic software firewall for each VM, by which you can make a segregation from VM1 to VM2, VM2 to VM3, everything within the same network. Suppose I have a one VLAN for one network, second VLAN from another network. So every VLAN, we should have a dynamic firewalling system. And that is also correlated with the microsegmentation. That is correlated with the software-defined perimeter, that's SDP. So the dynamic firewalling, what is that basically? I'm just giving one example. In the physical firewall, we write a program, write a script that allow everything, suppose 443, and deny everything, allow 443. So 443 HTTPS is allowed, but it is allowed till then, I am not closing it. But dynamic firewalling is not like that. It opens when it requests. Once the activity is completed, it will automatically close down. So that is one beautiful thing which is coming into the software-defined perimeter and the dynamic firewalling system, which will basically make the system more robust of penetration and also hacking. That's all. Baki rest of the thing already Rana has said. I don't want to go into multi-factor authentication, all these things. And these are because these are the things people are doing. A lot of experiments are going on. Various companies like Nitrogen, they are doing it. So that's all.
Sure. So thank you, Debojit. Thank you. I mean, that was a fairly detailed outline. Gautam, taking off from what Rana and Debojit said, they kind of brought out different aspects of it. And I think Debojit outlined a problem statement and came up with some, sort of solutions, which he himself, as an industry practitioner and commentator came out with. A, what is your comment to their views? And B, I have a question for you as well. See, we've already been seeing the 6th generation of cyber attacks becoming mainstream. So what, you've already spoken about it a little when you opened context. So what very quickly would you see as next cyber risks and new age cyber threats, which you foresee? And you've spoken at some length, when you opened your context session. So what do you think cyber attacks and how do you think cyber attackers are leveraging AI and ML to enable faster, better targeted and more destructive and difficult to detect attacks? So any thoughts on that, new threat vectors, etc.? So throwing this open to you back again.
Sure. So basically, I think what one should realize, the attackers are not attacking for fun. They are not college students. It is their business to attack and steal information. So if they are running a business, they need to be more efficient. So even as early as probably 3 or 4 years back, we used to see attacks which used to run long time continuously. Even if you have a great firewall blocking that attack, the attacks should actually used to still continue. That's a wastage of the attackers' systems because they are not getting anywhere. Just running the same attack for 3 hours will not, get them in. Now what we see is the attackers are evolving. If you start blocking them, They stop the attack, change their tactics, and attack again with a much bigger and much more malicious intent and a higher level. So they are evolving. Their attacks evolve. So that used to started even in a very great volume in last 2-3 years. But in last 6 months or so, that attacks has gain even more power. They are running real-time machine learning and AI-driven system, which not just evolve after 30 minutes or some hours. They just evolve every few requests, and that creates a very big, challenge for blocking them. Having something which is having a system which is very sophisticated, understanding and parsing all your logs, and then creating alerts that these types of attack happens is of no use, because they are just documenting you got attacked and you got information stolen, but they will not be helping you prevent it. You need equally powerful AI which evolves as it goes on and start blocking those attacks.
Sure, sure. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm completely in agreement with that. Rana, my question, taking off from where Gautam left off, and I think Debojit spoke about this. So this question is specifically for you. What's your take on API-driven platforms? I mean, that's one thing now that is, and more so with COVID, I think the API economy kicked off. It was already like a very integral part of organizational processes, but I think it kicked off in a bigger way with the pandemic. So now where do you see companies hit a roadblock with APIs, headless systems, and how do you think one should address them? I mean, and how does this pose your own security limitations or challenges?
Yeah, so I think one, of course, right, with the with this evolving technologies, right? So of course the companies are now employing all of the different stuff which Gautam outlined in his presentation, right? And AI ML is basically, yes, of course, it's one of the leading lights in cybersecurity, right? But there are multiple challenges in basically which are hindering the successful implementation of AI ML in cybersecurity, right? One, I think it's primarily because we have all the companies, right, traditional companies, and also this is a relatively new areas, right? So a lot of companies are in the foundational stage of employing all of this in their cybersecurity systems. But I think the major concern which is out there is because of the non-aligned internal processes, right? So most companies, of course, they've optimized their infrastructure for so long, especially if it is, let's say, security components, right, by investing in tools and platforms. But yet we see they will face security challenges, they will face security hurdles and fail to safeguard themselves, right, whenever there is an external attack. And this is primarily a result of lack of internal processes, lack of internal process improvements, right, and cultural change as well. That prevents from capitalizing the investments which they're making in security operation centers, right? And further, the lack of automation and lack of, I would say, fragmented processes creates a less of robust playground to create a defense against such kind of cyber criminal activity. So that's one. Second, I think I would say there is a challenge because of the storage systems are not decoupled. Most of the organizations, they do not leverage let's say data broker tools like, let's say, RabbitMQ or let's say Kafka to initiate analytics on the data, right, outside the system. So AI/ML needs a lot of data to actually work on those things, right? And then they have to leverage the data, compare the data, analyze the data, compare the data with past data, and then draw inferences out of it, right? Now, if you're not decoupling storage systems, and if you're not if you do not have computing layers, right, which do not allow AI scripts to execute effectively, so you're not going to get success, right? And further, I think a lack of decoupling of storage systems, it also increases the possibility of you getting locked with a vendor, right? In case if there is a change in the product or platform. And lastly, I think you have to also think of choosing the right AI use cases, right? More than 50 or 60% of these AI projects, security projects, AI/ML security projects, and they fail primarily because you are going all out and big bang. So you cannot adopt AI/ML on a company wide, let's say at an enterprise level, right? So you have to really take baby steps. You have to figure out which are the narrow use cases which can be solved through AI/ML, and they have to implement those and then see what is the outcome of those experiments, right? So, and a lot of companies, the mindset is that, if you plan big bang, right, and then if you fail, then suddenly then you will, take this inference saying that this is not for us. We'll not be able to actually, effectively roll this out, right? So that's how you miss on these initial learning curves. And, also, if you fail, right, you will also have critical learnings from those failed experiments, right? So you have to absorb those learnings and then, apply on future experiments, right? So that's why I think organizations sometimes, jeopardize their AI ML projects in the security space. And I think the lastly, I would say is that, AI ML is not a magic bullet, right? So of course, it can, give you critical safety against, cyber criminal activity, right? And it will help you in creating intelligent systems that are going to work as a very strong defensive mechanism against all these activities, right? But AI ML can basically, tell you that yes, something is wrong and this is something, which is going on, right? But eventually, at the end of the day, it is the security systems which have to actually do the root cause analysis and then say that this is the cause of the incident, and this is the rectification action which you have to take, right? So takeaway is that, if you have mature processes and if there is a cultural alignment, right, and you have skillful teams, you have to choose the right AI and do not go big bang. Start small, take some baby steps, and to do some experiments, take those learnings, and then move ahead. I think that's the way to challenge all these issues.
Sure. You've raised a very interesting point on, taking baby steps and looking for the right AI use cases. And you also broached upon something very interesting about the lack of storage system decoupling. So I think that should feed into Gautam's rejoinder or remarks for this. Gautam, inviting your comments to Rana's observations, and B, specifically as how do you see the trend in modern digital commerce architectures, and how do you think the security paradigm is changing in accordance, or is it changing in accordance with these modern digital commerce architectures? What's your take? What's your feel when you observe your conversations with stakeholders in the industry and customers and the like?
Yeah, sure. So in last few years, we have seen a huge push towards modern commerce. And when I say modern commerce, there are a lot of microservices being involved, a lot of headless systems, headless commerce is there, headless content systems are there. And they have changed the whole way a usual traditional web application works. There are a lot of different APIs, not just REST APIs, there are GraphQL APIs as well. So GraphQL, microservices, headless system are excellent technologies, but especially GraphQL was never designed to be exposed on the web. But that cat is out of the box. We have now exposed it. They are super powerful and they are here to stay exposed. And the very reason, if people are not aware of GraphQL, is if you have an API, it has 1, 2, 3, 5 different APIs you open up, and you know exactly what their request parameters are and what is that the response would be. But in GraphQL, there can be hundreds of options, and the hundreds of options can be used by any part of your system. So you are not sure whether this particular option which is coming to you is designed to be used or someone maliciously is trying to extract information from you. So that makes a life very difficult for a security professional. And that also Debojit hinted at, that creates unlimited complexity in code because developers are numerous. They have their own ways of dealing with it and they don't know security. They don't care, and they should not, because they are trying to build a feature. A business wanted it, and they don't want to hear, business doesn't want to hear the security team blocking a feature which will help their business. So that shouldn't be the case. And that's where multi-layered modern AI-driven systems for security come into play, because they can understand and adapt without anybody's problem. When I say problem, it's not some people who are in charge of changing the rules in the system and having a process that, okay, now there are some faults in the security or some penetration testing system has find out these are my problems, I'll fix these. So that's a very traditional process. That's a very, very applicable to traditional tools. AI-driven tools, because attackers are not following any rules, we need an AI system which is also not following any rules. And that makes the computer take ownership, obviously within parameters. And that gives the power into that system that you found the attack and block that attack at that point where you found it, not 10 requests from now. Just found the attack, block it. So that is the modern thing. And you're right, Rana, that it is a very painful task for many businesses to build a team, which is, first of all, people who need to be expert, systems who need to be cutting edge, and the people who were expert on previous tools need to adapt to the new tools. So that's a vicious cycle which will keep the security teams 2 steps behind the attackers. And that's where a system which is multi-layered, takes into account everything, and offloading your security responsibility to a SaaS offering and a team of experts who take full ownership of delivering that really comes into play. And leveraging the industry expertise is sort of a given in today's world. It is impossible for a company, even if a large company, to actually invest into security and win. There'll always be different tools coming in by attackers, and it's very difficult to continuously invest into it. So that's where these new systems are capable of handling and competing and winning over these attackers, because they are cohesive. They are working in a very focused solution.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that insight, Gautam. So I would jump to Debojit, to invite his comment on the conversation that's been going on. Debojit, you started off a sort of context on what constitutes a robust cybersecurity mechanism or set of tools in an organization. So let me ask you, we do know now that there are new cyber actors, etc., emerging threat vectors and devastating effects on the cybersecurity landscape of organizations, irrespective, as you said, plus minus across all industries, it remains the same. So how are you beefing up your cybersecurity tools and strategies, leveraging AI ML to counter and neutralize these next-gen AI-powered cyber threats? So some overview, please.
The thing is that I have a suggestion from the expert Gautam sitting here that most of the attacks today's days are coming to the encrypted format, and our firewalls, etc., where these are not able to track it because it is encrypted. And when it explodes after coming into the network, then it becomes a very difficult task. Now, the question, let's talk about AI ML, what you are talking about. That nothing AI is written by me, you, like this people. And what is this? It is a multivariable to a single output. Is a Jacobian calculus in a mathematical format that we have studied in our student life. So it is a format, and deep learning is a vector algebra. So the modus of resolving an issue, I should say a problem by me will differ with Gautam, will differ with Rana, because I may be able to do in 20 steps. Gautam expert can do it in 5 steps. Rana can do it in 10 steps. So the thing is that the algorithm which we are writing into that is a question that we don't know today's date. And the state vector people, they are now capable of making it reverse. What is this reverse? Because this Jacobian calculus is nothing but a matrix vector calculus, okay? So if I make a transporter of the matrix, then the entire thing becomes reverse. Correct, Gautam? So
sure.
I should not tell about the mathematical part, but just giving an example. So when it is transport, then the entire thing becomes reverse, and I go into the back of the original thing. So my AI, whatever I have written into the algorithm, that becomes nullified. So this is a question as a customer. I'm not a specialist, I'm a customer, to understand how to combat this. Because now advanced ML has come. What is advanced ML? Advanced ML is nothing but a reverse engineering of the ML. So like deep learning is not that much of, prominent in the network today, but tomorrow this is the future. So, and the reverse will come out again. So there is no end. And in any retail industry, especially in the grocery market, I have an experience in the grocery also before that. So grocery market or any kind of retail market, you cannot have 100 restrictions. Otherwise, the business will jeopardize. So the business objective has to be fulfilled fast, keeping security as a guideline. Not security is a function of the business, but business will be the function of security. So this is a reverse process. So, and because for any kind of retail industry, there are 3,000 to 4,000 vendors are there. They are the supply chain management people. And suppose, for example, somebody is supplying a button, somebody is supplying the thread, somebody in a grocery, somebody is supplying the bread, somebody is 10 vendors are supplying 10 different kind of butter or this kind of items, anything. So there is no end. And to make a holistic picture of the security into this is a difficult task. And I have, these are the questions always rise to me as a customer, that how to cope up all these things in a framework. Is it possible at all? Because whatever you are thinking today, they are thinking 10 days before that. So any attackers, whenever the attacks comes in, after that the IOCs are coming, not the previous, not the reverse way. Like Cisco is such a big security company, the network company, they are being hacked. Microsoft, they are giving us the entire thing, they are compromised. So where you will go? Whom you will trust? So, so there is always an ambiguity into this, that whom to trust, what to do. Today, nothing, because generally what happens, the CEOs think that this is an investment only, because there is no end. Today you are telling this investment, suppose for 30 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs, whatever, and it's a very expensive. The biggest challenge is security is very expensive. It's not like a router or switch kind of thing that you can get it at a very low cost. So it's a very costly item. And tomorrow you are telling, no, that technology is obsolete because that is compromised. So you have to take a new. Within 3 years' time, before the ROI of the device is coming, or the technology or the financial part is completed, this technology is obsolete. And if you keep on making that technology, retain the technology, then you are threatened for the compromise. So
I think Debojit, what you are saying is absolutely in a very articulate way.
I'm not depriving anybody, not disheartening anybody. I'm telling as a fact.
Exactly. So you're echoing the sentiments across, I would say, a whole lot of security professionals who are passionate about this field. See, gone are the days when people or a team of people actually were experts in security can protect the system. If you wanted to, write a letter, you could write in a piece of paper, but you wanted to send to 20 people a greeting card, you can still do it. If you wanted to send wedding invitation to 200 people, you can get 5 people and do it by hand. But if you want to send a letter to 1 million people, it's not possible by humans. You need machines to keep doing the repetitive work. So in security, this is what has happened. The number of rules to protect a site or a given infrastructure has gone so much beyond. So many different parameters have gone in. It's like, weather predictions happening. You need supercomputers to predict the weather. You cannot just go outside, look at it, and then in 2 hours it start going to rain. So in security, that's what's happening. When we say AI and machine learning, we have built models which are going to save 1,000,000 hours of work into a millisecond. And that makes the real-time processing work. It's impossible for a big security team to match that in any way. If it was 10 years back, I'm pretty sure, yes, a security team would have been easily successful. In future, it will not be. It is now. People are not safe without a sophisticated attack prevention system in place.
No,
And
but
that cannot be one
I have
technology.
a question. But
Sure.
if you look at, I read last year, maybe in the December or November, the Hackers Association in US, they have purchased the quantum computers. So
Mhm.
the qubit concept, if you look at, that can kill the binary concept. So whatever the investment today we are making, we don't know what is the outcome, because the quantum today it is coming in 100 crores, but tomorrow this will be very easily available, and
Correct.
then the entire gimmick will change and the entire system will change,
Right.
because
Absolutely.
the qubit does not follow the binary.
It's probably 1,000 times faster than
No,
any
faster.
fast
Forget about
computer.
faster. Forget about
And
faster. But I want to talk about the qubit bit. I'm talking
correct.
about the bit. Is a quantum.
Mhm.
So it's a numerical value. It's not 1 and 0 only. It can take
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up to 10. So
Right.
if you accumulate 10 into 10 to the power 10, then how much bigger it is coming is 1 qubit.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
So these are the things coming. There is no end. Keep on making and we keep on purchasing.
And that's one of the things as well. So purchasing appliance-based security tools is also gone now, because as Debojit clearly said, if you purchase a hardware, it's very slow to adapt to new algorithms being put in, and the competition is attackers who are using software-based attacking tools, which
Yes,
they
yes.
are at a much faster rate. So having a VPN system is outdated, having networking firewall systems outdated. We must adopt a mentality of zero trust systems, where you are protecting your internal systems equally as the external, because as Rana mentioned as well, remote workers or even workers using their mobile phones can be compromised, and attackers can get through the internal network, and then everything is open for them. So everything should be in a zero trust model. That's just a thinking philosophy, zero trust. And putting the same level of security processes and same tools or similar tools which you are protecting your external surface should be an internal surface as well.
So that's why I was talking about zero trust over the microsegmentation, software defined perimeter, dynamic firewall.
Correct.
These are all software based. But
Yeah.
how long?
So
no
yeah,
end.
may I quickly interject here? Would just like to kind of take a quick break, and I'm kind of going through some of the comments from the audience section to see if we have addressed them adequately or if anything has to be addressed. I'll just do a quick run here. Sorry, Debojit will come back to you very quickly for closing comments. Allow us a minute here. So there is Dinesh Biz, who has spoken about, despite so many passive methods to counter cyber attacking, do you suggest any foolproof method to counter or immediate nabbing of cyber attackers? I think we've kind of spoken about that we have to look at zero trust as a mission statement, and the use of new age sophisticated tools. So Gautam, I think all the three panelists spoke about that. How to keep attack, okay. And
Tamper-proof tokens is also another thing in that area,
sure.
where once you issue a token, if for any reason it's being tampered with and detected, it's a real-time prevention for unknown attacks to you.
Correct. Absolutely. And we have Hetal Prajapati, who talks about any organizations who would check current IT infrastructure and suggest recommendations. I think you spoke about going on SaaS offerings. Is there something you would like to add on to that, Gautam? if this is a question that, is right up your alley.
Yeah, sure. We provide that. If you go to n7.io, we can help you with that. There are many different levels of detection and protection you can think of. There are a lot of penetration testing or security testing organization who can do one-time testing for you and give you a much bigger, broader picture of what your organization's security vulnerability is. And then you can work towards fixing them, or you can go into a real-time solution which fixes all the vulnerabilities. So it's like basically in COVID, we all got used to testing whether we have COVID or someone has COVID or not. And Debojit knows, but testing does not help you prevent getting COVID, or if you got COVID, recover from it. You need vaccines. You need insurance policies against your attacks that they will not happen, guarantees. So that's where protection systems are there, and they differ from testing systems.
And I think that's where I think, Gautam, your 2x2 metrics across security and speed is going to actually help organizations and people to actually, fine tune and then figure out which SaaS product or platform we should actually, look at adopting, right?
Sure. I think we will send that slides out after the call.
Great. So, we have in the best interest of time, I would like to invite a very, very quick two-pointer from Rana in terms of best practices. If you could list out 2 best practices you think digital commerce businesses should adopt as far as cybersecurity goes, what would you recommend? 2 points, Rana.
So I would say, I think it's nowadays, right, with all this new technologies coming in, right, it's you can manage a fine balance between user experience and security. I think 2 principles, I would say, one, of course, is simplicity. If I take an example of, let's say, login screen, right? A login screen doesn't need to, bombard the user with all these warnings and error messages and all of that, right? So it should be simple. You should show the user what he needs to do and nothing more. That's it. And second, I think clarity. Explain the users in terms of why they are supposed to do something, even if it is, let's say, CAPTCHA, or let's say something else, right? Multi-factor authentication, or let's say biometric verification. You should clearly explain to the user, make the user very clear in terms of why this is required and how it is going to help him. I think these are the 2 principles which I would like to use to manage the balance between security and user experience.
Wow, that was quick and very aptly summed up. Debojit, your 1 top pointer best practice.
One best point, I believe that the process has to be in place first before going into the security. The process can be set by ISO 27700. Until otherwise, you have a proper process of security, proper knowledge, training, user awareness. There is no as such any value of the security in the organization, because the people has to be disciplined first, internal people, and internal process.
Yes.
Rest of the things Rana has said, or everybody knows what are the things. I don't want to go into that.
No, you raised, quite a bit of, very what we say, interactive discussions here. So we're grateful for some of the points that came in from Rana as well as Debojit, and kind of created the right amount of flutter in the panel discussion. Gautam, your closing remarks, please.
What people should be looking at is multi-layered security solutions, not just one. So it needs to cover the whole spectrum of what the attackers can be doing on your site. It needs to be depending on what kind of level you want. And secondly, really evaluate whether your internal security teams can handle that, or you need to offload the security responsibility to a respected organization.
Absolutely. So we had an interesting sort of set of debates and sort of devil's advocate coming in from within the panel and from the audience today. Modern security, digital businesses, or if I may sort of be presumptuous enough to say, industry agnostically, cybersecurity landscapes have changed. Organizations are better off looking at their threat vectors in a new way, because with cyber attackers going sophisticated with the use of AI and ML, it is time organizations looked at their cybersecurities with multi-layered solutions and looking at their core competence and outsourcing their cybersecurity strategies have a right mix. In short, I would not be advocating any one-stop shop, sort of a solution for all organizations, but look at a good blend of their cybersecurity solutions. Talk to industry stakeholders, talk to vendors, talk to solution providers, talk to peers, and arrive at what would be an optimal mix for them. On that note, I would be signing off for this special session. Of course, more questions would be there. Please feel free to reach out to us. We would connect you to the right people. Please feel free to reach out to Gautam and his team as well. Thank you, Gautam, for helping us to initiate this discussion. Any more questions? We are happy to answer them offline after this event, and we would be sort of maybe initiating more discussions. Cybersecurity never ends as a discussion. So on that note, we would be signing off this session on behalf of ETRetail as well as Nitrogen. Thank you so much, Rana. Thank you, Debojit. Thank you, Gautam, for joining us, and thank you all in the audience for joining us today. This is Shanteri Maitra signing off for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.